Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. We're sure glad that you joined us. We have a great topic. Our topic today is Don't Let Security Trip You Up, DevOps and Security. A great topic, very timely, a lot of things going down, happening with all of our applications and security. Today's webinar is hosted by Synopsys, and this is Mitch Ashley. I'm going to serve as your host and moderator. Happy to be here. There's a couple of housekeeping items we just want to take care of first, and that's that we're going to be recording the webinar, so you don't have to take a lot of notes. You can sit back, listen to our speaker. I may jot down a few things, but we'll be sending you the slides and recording the webinar both, and all the participants will receive an email with links to both of those items. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the content here. We're also giving away gift cards, Amazon gift cards, 4 $25 gift cards at the end of today's webinar. So please stick around, find out if you're one of our winners. Also, our speaker today loves questions. I know we should be happy to answer as many of those as we can in the time that we have. So please use the GoToWebinar software, control panel, the questions tab, enter your questions there, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar. So let's get to our topic. Don't let security trip you up, DevOps and security. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Meera Rao, who is Senior Director, Product Management at Synopsys. Meera, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away.
Thanks, Mitch. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are joining today. Like Mitch mentioned, I work for Synopsys. I have been with Synopsys for 12 plus years now. I work with a lot of companies where I help them build security within their CI/CD pipelines, make sure that I advise them on what needs to be done, how do you build these activities within your pipeline, what manual activities do you need to do, how do you balance the right depth versus the activities that you need to do within your secure SDLC. So again, I'm very active on Twitter, on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, again, definitely ask here. But then if you want to connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, please do so. Would be very happy to talk to all of you. So again, one of the key things that we want to see is what are some of the challenges that we see within the industry, especially when organizations want to build security within their DevOps processes. What are some of the challenges that they see when they bring in new technology for application security testing? How have we helped organizations in overcoming those challenges? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the challenges, then we go deep into some of the best practices. How have we helped organizations overcome those challenges? Again, when you look at this slide, I don't need to explain anything, right? We have seen every single day how applications are being targeted, how there are so many breaches. If you follow the presidential elections, you know that one of the campaigns' websites was hacked yesterday, right? So we see this every single day. In the beginning, at least, like almost like 13 years back when I joined this field, most of the things that organizations did was build this network layer and then protected that, and then everything that was happening within the application layer, everyone thought that as soon as I bolt something in, that's good to go, but not so anymore, right? So we are seeing all of the attacks that are happening in the recent years on the application layer. So one of the key challenges that we see is, especially now, software development is more of everything, right? You have more code. You write all the complex code for your business logic, but then everything else is available for us, right? We have open source, we get those. We want to build applications for web, for mobile applications. Then you want to have different languages. Earlier, yes, a lot of the organizations that I worked with, they had applications built in majority of two languages. It was either Java or all the languages, all the other applications that were written way early was either in C, C++. And then yes, there was .NET. Then slowly all the other languages, scripting languages came in, JavaScript, Go, right? So you have different platforms, a lot of open source, and then slowly over the past few years, we started seeing most organizations starting to use containers, and then cloud became popular. So there's a lot of complexity when you want to secure your application. And then came the shift, right? So as soon as DevOps came, everyone wanted to deploy to production, at least to their continuous delivery, right? Staging environment or pre-production. As soon as they made changes, then they started talking about shift left. So there was like more things that were changing. And then as all of these kept on adding, we saw that there is more risk, right? Because as and when you bring in all these new technologies, new frameworks, new languages, you don't have as many secure best practices. So there is more risk, right? And then one of the key things that I am seeing is every company that I talk to wants to do DevOps, right? And again, there's a basic difference in what do they think about DevOps, right? What do they mean by DevOps? In some cases, I see that they have some tools which are automated and they call it DevOps, I'm done, right? But for me, DevOps is all about culture, right? So you have to build this culture of automation. Yes, automation is key, but then you also need to have this culture of feedback. You need to have the culture of measuring, right? Metrics. You need to have the culture of learning, like especially when you start adopting cloud, you are using containers, you are writing applications, single page applications, you're deploying it to your cloud, or whatever, right? GCP, you have a lot of APIs which you need to secure. Yes, everything is good, but then one of the key things is when you talk about DevOps, they want everything to be done at speed and at scale. But then when it comes to security, all of these, both speed and scale, comes to a grinding halt, right? You know, because speed, when you start including all of the tools that you want to include in your DevOps processes, it takes time. Whatever tool you want to run, like you see there, static analysis, software composition analysis, or DAST or IAST. Yeah, okay, you have all of these, the best tools in the world, which runs in like minutes, but then how do you correlate all of these findings? That's a huge problem. And then once, yeah, you correlated all of these findings, you have maybe 100, 150 findings for one project. How do you prioritize? What do I fix, right? So risk management, again, is a huge problem. So again, one of the key things that we started seeing is as organizations started moving towards DevOps, they started adopting cloud, security became an afterthought, right? Even though in many cases they did include security in their pipelines, the developers and the operations team got truly frustrated because of the speed, because of the sheer time it took to build these tools in the pipeline, look at all the results, weed out all the false positives, give the ones that your development team truly needs, right? So again, even though there are a lot of tools available for you, there are a lot of technologies available for you, the development team is going to different languages, right? So if your tool that you have cannot keep up with the pace with which your developer is bringing in new languages in your organization, then you have to support different pipelines, right? So there might be a tool which supports Java, .NET, maybe Go, but then if your development team comes back and says, hey, I'm using JavaScript, I'm using Angular or Node.js or whatnot, and the tool doesn't support that, you would have to build a different pipeline for them, right? And then, like I said, these pipelines vary based on your tech stacks. One of the biggest challenges I have seen is, yeah, you might still be using Java, but then there might be one application which is using web, and then there might be another one which is using microservices. So are you going to use the same rules that apply for both of these? No, right? Because you want different rules which are customized, which are tailored to the framework and the technology that you are using. And then, like I talked about, it is quality versus speed, right? So when you're doing DevOps, you're going to either doing continuous delivery or deployment at speed. Whereas here, when it comes to implementing all of your security tools in the pipeline, now you have to decide, what do I want to do? Do I look at the quality and then spend all the time and see the tool takes like maybe 2 hours or 3 hours? Do I wait? Do I run it synchronously? Do I run it asynchronously? Do I run it out of band? You have so much things to consider when you look at this, right? And then the other thing that we have seen is feedback. How do you provide this feedback to your developers? Each and every tool has its own way of breaking the build. Each and every tool has its own way of providing you the results. Maybe one provides the results through API. The other tool allows you to download a PDF file. The third one gives you the results in JSON. How do you uniformly give this feedback to your developers, right? You don't want to overwhelm them with all of the findings that the tool finds, but then you want to make sure that they get the results at the right time and with the right knowledge that they need in order to fix these defects, right? And then the next thing that we see is scaling. All of this always remains a challenge. Yes, in the beginning, you might do a pilot with any of the tools that you acquire for security, but then you do a POC for 3 applications, 4 applications, but then now you need to scale it to hundreds of applications that you have, hundreds of pipelines which are all already up and running in your organization. How do I scale this, right? Even before all of these, scaling was a challenge. In the beginning, when we built all of these pipelines for several customers, even within Synopsys, we used to come up with so many virtual machines, right, which were focused. All of these were like beefy machines that we gave it the name, right, because it had to be very powerful, especially for running static analysis. So it had to have a lot of hard disk space, a lot of memory, lot of space, even and then RAM. So again, the biggest challenge was, okay, how many virtual machines do we need? How do we onboard this? How do we balance what happens where? How do we upgrade these? All of this was a huge challenge. Some of that is reduced now, especially with cloud and containers. You can have all of these tools run in your containers. You can deploy it in your cloud. You can scale up and down based on how many projects you onboard. But then again, in general, if you don't do it the right way, scaling remains a huge challenge. So at this point, let me send it back to Mitch, because I think we have a poll question here. Mitch?
You bet, happy to. Let's bring up our first poll question here. Great. How frequently do you deploy to production? With every change, multiple times a week, once per week, every few weeks, yearly? So the poll is open. Love to have everybody submit to that, please. And we see answers are already coming in. So
yeah.
folks are anxious to share their thoughts with us. Mira.
Yeah, no, I think this is very important, right? Because based on how often do you deploy to production, there are many activities, right, that you can do either inline in your pipeline or out of band. So one of the key things that I ask most of the organizations that I work with is this question: how often do you deploy to production? And then I think I'm getting the same answer here when I look here.
Let me go ahead and produce the results. We've had about 2/3 of our
Yes.
participants join in. So if you have any last minute, you want to jump in, now's the time. I'm just getting ready to close it in 3, 2, 1. Polls are closed. Okay.
Perfect.
Let's
Like you see, every few weeks and then multiple times a week. Yeah, I think those are exactly what I see. Only 2% said with every change. Again, yeah, and then 5% yearly. So yearly has gone down drastically over the past several years, but then multiple times a week and every few weeks is what we see as well. Great, exactly. So again, this webinar is going to definitely help all those categories, right? All those categories.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a good representation of our audience. About 2/3 filled out the poll. So, great. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, let me. Okay, now that we saw some of the challenges, let's see how do we actually build security into your DevSecOps, DevOps, SDLC, right? So you already have this process in place. You have all the automation. You have built the culture within your organization. How do we do this, right? So this is the touch points that I talk about in any webinar or any conference that I go to. I always share this. So what does this mean? So you have different stages in your SDLC, right? Let's start with the planning phase. In the planning phase, you do a lot of activities, like we hope you do a lot of activities, right? So security requirements, threat modeling, risk analysis. So before completely moving into this side of DevOps and CI/CD, when I initially joined the company, I did a lot of threat modeling, a lot of risk analysis for many clients. It's a very laborious process, right? Because you need to understand the architecture of the application. You go to the clients, you do a lot of interviews. It's a very tough skill to acquire, doing threat modeling, doing risk analysis, because you need to have knowledge about the architecture, the frameworks, the languages, how it's being deployed. So hopefully a lot of organizations are doing at least the basic threat modeling, because it's key, especially when you're doing DevOps, right? And you want to build security. Why? Because when you do a threat model, you have a lot of key things that you talk about. You talk about the controls that are in there in order to protect your assets, right? You understand what are the different attack surfaces. How can an attacker get to your application? You talk about who are the attackers, right? They might be outsiders, they might be insiders. So with all of that knowledge, it helps you in building all of the automation and everything else within your pipeline. Especially that is how I look at threat modeling, right? And then once you have your code, that is where you start some IDE integration with the tools that you have. Maybe you do some static analysis. We are doing a lot of pre-commit hooks now, especially with the different versions of Git that are available, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, right? And then a lot of companies also do a little bit of malicious code prevention. Then when your developer checks in the code into the version control, that's where you truly do static analysis, software composition analysis, maybe do a manual code review, and then as your code goes towards the right during the testing phase, again, I have stats in different places. Why? Because we want to make sure that a lot of companies have compliance requirements, governance requirements. So we want to make sure that when we run static analysis, we provide fast feedback in the early phases to the developers, and then as it goes deep and deep into the pipeline, we run static analysis, long running scans, right? And then as it goes through your release, deploy, and operate, you have a lot of other tools and technologies that you want to run, right? So a lot of organizations want to do penetration testing. A lot of organizations also have malicious code detection at that point. And then once your code goes to production, again, you do red teaming, monitoring, you have like ongoing assessments and things, operational protections and things like that. So when you look at all of these, there are a lot of activities which are manual, right? So you can see the manual code review, penetration tests, threat modeling, risk analysis, and there are a lot of activities which are automated, right? Like static analysis, software composition analysis, IaaS, DAS, you might have all of those. You might have Docker scanning if you're using containers. You might have cloud configuration reviews, which all can be automated, right? How do you balance all of this? Okay, Mira is asking us to do so many activities in the pipeline. This is going to bring my pipeline to a grinding halt, right? But then how do I balance? When do I know I need to update my threat model? When do I need to know I need to do a risk analysis? I need to go and update my risk analysis. So there's always this dilemma that I see within a lot of clients that I work with. How do we even balance this? And that's something we are going to talk about. The very first thing that you need to understand is, yeah, we looked at all of these. What finds what? What do I mean by that? Each and every activity that you saw there finds different things, right? So if there was one activity which was able to cover all of the things that you needed to find out with respect to security, then that would have been so easy. But there is no one activity, right? So you need to understand when I say what finds what are the different discovery methods and what artifacts do they need? What is inspected, right? Say, for example, if you're doing static analysis, it needs source code. Yeah, there are certain tools where it doesn't need the source code. You can give it the binaries and it will be able to run. Which stage of the life cycle are you running this, right? You cannot do penetration test all the way early in the SDLC, right? Because there is nothing to be deployed. Your developer hasn't even written code, right? So you need to look at which stage of the life cycle, how much of the code is available, what artifacts are needed. So when I talk about static analysis, yeah, there are certain tools where you can just give it the source code and it will be able to find issues with that. But then there are a lot of other tools where you need the source code, also the binaries, because you need the code to compile in order to get the full data flow analysis, right? Who is the audience, right? So there are a lot of companies with whom I work. They do a lot of network testing. Now, I cannot give all of the results from network testing, whatever I found, to my developer, right? So you need to know who is the reporting audience, who do I give this results to, right? And then what are the skills that are necessary? Like I said, especially when you're doing threat modeling, risk analysis, which finds completely different things, you need certain set of skill set. And then the budget, right? How much budget is available? When I have to do a manual code review, I need a lot of time because I'm looking at the code. So it depends. You may need 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But if you're doing like a diff-based manual code review, maybe you might be able to finish it within 1 day. But if I'm building a threat model, if I'm doing a risk analysis for the very first time, I need 3 to 4 weeks. How much budget is available, right? So based off of all of that, you need to look at okay, what finds what and what do I need to do? And then the next thing is, once you know what finds what, a lot of, again, when I do this presentations, many ask, okay, then tell me which one should I do, right? Because again, there is no one activity that I can tell you, just do this and you're covered, right? There is nothing like that. There are a lot of activities. I'm just comparing a few here in this slide. ARA, architecture risk analysis, it actually takes days to weeks, and it is completely manual, right? There's no false positive because we are actually looking at your code, how you deployed it, what are the controls there, what are the attack surfaces, everything. So there is highly accurate, but then it takes a long time. And then it cannot be automated because a human is needed in order to do that. Whereas if you're doing static analysis, or if you have tools for running static analysis for your mobile, yeah, it can go through your entire code base within like minutes to hours, right? If you have millions of lines of code, yeah, it might take hours, 2 hours, 60 minutes, 70 minutes. But then the accuracy is medium, right? Because you have a lot of false positives. You need someone to triage all the results and bring it to a baseline, remove all the false positives, prioritize all the findings. So again, the accuracy is medium. Manual code review, which I did a lot, right? When I was like in the beginning, when I joined the company, I did a lot. So here again, sometimes we had access to tools. So we were able to do a tool-based manual code review because the tools gave us pointers where to look at, and then we were able to focus specifically on those. Does it allow me to automate that? No, right? It's a human who is performing this, but the accuracy is high because I look at the code, I validate that this is a true positive, because when I come and present you the report, I should be able to show you that, hey, this is highly accurate, go fix it. And then you have DAST and IAS. Yes, they run on your running application, completely automated. You can automate it. Accuracy, again, yeah, they have very good accurate results, but then again, it still has some false positives. Penetration testing, like many organizations do, almost 99% they do that, right? So again, this is a human who is doing the penetration test, even though they are using some tool. Again, the accuracy is very high. And then there in the last few years at least, we had RAS tools. Some organizations have used. I haven't seen too many use that. Low false positives, but then the accuracy is very high, right? So there's a balance, right? So there are some activities which are automated, some which are manual. So you need to balance, what do I need to do? When do I actually do these manual activities to make sure I have that assurance that I didn't leave out certain key areas or miss certain key findings. So you need to balance that. So how do we balance that, right? How do I know when to dig deep into certain activities, and then how do I know I can skip and then go to production, right? So that is where we talk about risk-based security. So this is where you look at your entire pipeline. Well, again, even the first question that we asked, how often do you want to deploy? Based off of that, you can build your pipeline so that you do all of the activities, like the very first one, give your developers the tool that they can run in their IDE, or even when they are committing the code. So this is where you are able to prevent the security bugs entering into your code itself, right? You're preventing and you're enabling your developers. So two activities that you can run here, these analysis can be run at a file level, is static analysis and software composition analysis. Very good, right? Okay, if every developer use these tools religiously, then life would have been different, but that's not how it is, right? Because and then in many cases we don't want to enable all the rules and then overburden our developers. So we only enable a few of them and let them know that we found certain issues and allow them to fix it. Now, once they check in the code, this is where a lot of places where we help clients when they check in their code into their version control. When you do a pull request, you can run a change set analysis. What did they change? And then you can run incremental SaaS, software composition analysis. So this is your proactive, right? So you're going to reduce the risk. And then, like since most of you said you deploy to production every few weeks or multiple times a week, you have enough time to run either hourly builds or nightly builds where you run a comprehensive test, right? Either in the same pipeline, the build pipeline that you have, or in a parallel pipeline where you can run a deep static analysis, you can run software composition analysis, you can run a comprehensive DAS and IaaS. Yeah, I have only picked 4 activities here, but then in real world, most of our clients do a lot more, right? So they do container scans, they do configuration reviews, network testing. There are a lot of tools available for those. So you can do all of those again either in the hourly build or nightly build, and make sure that you have that assurance. Again, you need to look at all of these from how often am I deploying and what is the change significance? How significant is the code change, right? If someone changed a JavaScript file, a label or something like that, do I need to run all of these activities? No, right? So look at all of those and then decide, what do I need to do? Do I need to run, am I good to just merge it to my main branch or production branch, whatever you may call, and run my change set analysis and allow the code to go to production? Or, hey, this is a major release, I need to be running a deep dive analysis, all of the activities. Do I need to run in the current pipeline? Do I run it parallelly? And then you provide that feedback to your developers. Okay, we understand, we run it either synchronously or asynchronously or separate pipeline, we get all the results. What do we do, right? Each and every tool finds so many issues. So the goal here is every time we work with our clients, we talk to them about risk-based prioritization for remediation. What do I mean by that? When you run your tools, when you run all of the activities, you categorize them, right, based on severity, either high, medium, low, or critical, high, medium, low, informational. Each and every organization has a risk mitigation plan, right? Okay, for critical, your code cannot go to production if you have critical. High, you have 1 week. Medium, you have 6 months. Low, we don't even care, right? So look at that and then prioritize all of the findings, get all of the categories that you see from your SAT, from your DAS, penetration test. Again, not in an Excel spreadsheet, right? Make sure that you have a uniform dashboard where you push all the results and you're able to see a consolidated view, and then you prioritize. Okay, what do I ask my developers to fix? What is key? And then what is truly risky that I cannot deploy this to production with this one, right? So make sure you look at all of those and then give your developers that ability to prioritize. And the next thing that we need to do is optimize testing for DevOps. What do I mean by that? So you already have a build pipeline. You already have a metrics dashboard. You already have a bug tracking system, Jira. And now you have an artifact repository to push your artifacts. What do I need to do, right? So when your developer is developing code, make sure that you give them tools to run in their IDE and then build those pre-commit hooks, right? So what rules do I need to run at this stage, right? You don't want to run complete static analysis here, right? Because that's going to take a long time. You want to provide the feedback to your developers within like seconds, 30, 40 seconds is maximum. So simple things, right? Like changes to configuration files, hard-coded passwords, encryption keys. Those are some of the things that you want to run here because you are able to give your developers quick feedback, not full static analysis. So once they commit the code to your version control, that is where you want to run your incremental SaaS, which again, very prioritized rule sets, predefined, highly configured rule sets. Look at what is the top 5 issues that this project has. Not the top 5 for OWASP top 10. That might not even be one of the issues that that application has, right? That's the mistake most organizations do. So prioritize for the application that you're running this pipeline, you're running this static analysis, right? And then provide that quick feedback for your developers. And then again, like I say, you break the build. Break the build again. I say this in every webinar, is an overloaded term that I use. You don't have to break the build. You can pause. You can send email notifications, Slack notifications, whatever the developer prefers. So you notify them, hey, I found this issue, cross-site scripting issue. Maybe you can pause at that point, right? Maybe you can not allow the pull request, whatever is your process in your organization. Gather the metrics you want to see, right? You want to know who is the developer who is checking in bad code. Why? Because I want to help them in giving additional maybe training or giving them additional inputs on how to fix cross-site scripting or SQL injection. And then automate bug tracking. Again, when I say automate bug tracking, a lot of organizations jump out of their chair. Oh my God, she's asking us to automate bug tracking with all the deep. No, right? You're highly configuring what rules break the build. And maybe, okay, this is the month of October. I only want to break the rule build for SQL injection. Then automate the defects just for SQL injection so that they are able to fix those, right? So you're not going to push all the defects that the tool finds into your bug tracking, right? So you're going to prioritize, and it's risk-based. And then again, like I said, gather all the metrics. We need all these metrics every single time. And then again, defect tracking. You're going to push the defect into the defect tracking. Build time, what are we doing? Again, we are doing SaaS with a broader set of rules. And then you're going to push the artifact, whatever it is, right? It might be your jar, var, year, a package, npm package into your artifactory. And then that is where you do your other activities. You do your software composition analysis, you do DAST, you do IAST, and then the same rule applies when you're breaking the build, when you're automating defect tracking, when you're letting your developers know, you're gathering all the metrics, and then again, once it goes to production, you have a lot of other activities that you do. So the one thing that I talk about here is to divide and conquer, right? So you are finely tuning the rules that you want to run. You can do a similar one for software composition analysis, for DAST and IAST, and the different rules that you run at different phases, test time, staging, and pre-prod. You might have so many other environments, but then the most common we have seen is testing, staging, and production environment. So decide, okay, what do I need to run? Does my DAST allow incremental scanning? Yes. Did some APIs change? Can I just run those APIs and provide those as inputs for my DAST? yes, then you should be able to run that, right? Okay, at this point, I think we have one more poll question, Mitch.
Here we go, just getting that loaded up here for us. And you should see it now. Which development practices does your team use? DevOps, DevSecOps, CI/CD, Waterfall, Agile? And the polls are open. I feel like it's next Tuesday here. The polls are open and we're ready to close.
Oh, yes.
Not to bring up the
I don't think I'll be able to sleep next Monday night. I am so
probably
nervous.
a little bit less on the line for this poll versus next Tuesday, but you know.
Exactly. I'm excited about this poll, but then not next week.
You know, for our purposes, this is just as important as next Tuesday, you know, within this context of this hour. So we'll leave it at that. We got about half the folks that have already voted. So a few more remaining seconds here. Have a few more folks jump in. We'd love to see your responses. Have some interesting results. I'm excited for you to share this with everyone, Mira.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to close the polls in 3, 2, going once, going twice, sold. And there's our results.
Wonderful. Yeah, a lot of attendees mentioned that they do DevSecOps, which is 29%. Wow, that's good. And there's 26% for DevOps. And then, yeah, I think CI/CD only 9%. Waterfall completely down. That's I hope to see. I was hoping that Waterfall would be even more less than CI/CD, but yeah, this is a good one.
Folks are in transition, I would guess. It'd be interesting to see the trend here. If
Yeah.
Waterfall was declining, Agile DevOps, DevSecOps, I assume are going up, but you know, it's a point in time look at it. So
Exactly.
Great. Okay, well, I'll pull this down and let you wrap up there.
Perfect. So again, one of the key things is how do I enable my developers? That's something that a lot of organizations, especially the security team, that asks me in many companies, right? One is you provide them IDE support, right? So the tools, most organizations allow you to they have tools for static analysis, some have tools for software composition analysis to be run within the developer's IDE. And then the next thing that we are seeing now is to provide the support to the development community within the version control that they use, right? Rather than asking the developers to go to different dashboards, hey, I'll just take example of Synopsys, right? In order to understand to run static analysis, go to Polaris, which is a dashboard for Coverity, Black Duck Hub for software composition analysis, Seeker dashboard for IAST, Tinfoil for Tinfoil DAST results. You want to give them the results in the place they are. So this is an example of GitHub Actions for Synopsys tools. So what we do is give them the results of the scan when, again, like I said earlier, you run incremental scan, you get the results, you give it to them in the technology and the tool that they choose to use, and then you give them all the help. Like you're seeing here, it is telling you the SQL injection, how do you fix it, use prepared statements, how do you write prepared statements, so they can go back, make the changes, check it back in, and then you run the scan and then immediately let them know that, hey, this is closed, right? So developer enablement is key, right? So give them all the support, all the help with the tools and technologies that you have within your organization for them to fix the security defects as they are entering your code base, right? So this is the portion of shift left. So that doesn't mean that you skip all the activities at the later stages in your SDLC, but the goal here is to make sure that you provide them the feedback that they need at the time that the vulnerability is being introduced, right? And then again, here is a simple example of a security pipeline. Again, this shows all synopsis tools, but then you can pick and choose the tools and technologies that you have in most cases, rather than running or building all of the activities in the build pipeline. In some of the organizations, we have a parallel pipeline, right? So as soon as you do the code build in your development pipeline and you run some basic unit tests, this security pipeline kicks off. Security pipeline still has same access to your notifications, Slack, email, whatnot. It has the same access to your defect tracking, right? Because you treat security defects with the same importance that you give for quality, right? So it still should be able to update your same defect tracking. It also should be able to give you feedback. So we run feedback after each stage, right? Because when you know I have a critical vulnerability with Coverity complained about or found, hey, you have cross-site scripting or SQL injection, there's no point going next stage in the pipeline, right? So we, again, based on the process that the organization has, some want to break the build, some want to pause the build, notify someone, they come here and say, yes, I accept the risk, and then say either continue or break. Gather the defects, right? Or any process that you have. This process may be in your Confluence, maybe in SharePoint, maybe in Jira. We want to bring all of that and automate that. So governance as code, your compliance as code, your policy as code, and then we want to make sure that you're seeing two examples, one where the pipeline zipped through all the stages, and then the other one where it is red because it had critical vulnerabilities, right? And then the next thing we also want to do is to understand when in this process do we want to do some manual activities, right? So if we see some critical changes in your code base, we want to trigger a threat modeling, or we want to do a manual. Maybe one example is anytime we find way too many cross-site scripting or SQL injection issues, we want someone to do a manual code review, right? So you might have all of these processes in place. We want to bring that into the pipeline. So bring all of those manual decisions that you have where someone is looking somewhere, like either they are looking at a spreadsheet or a dashboard, and then stopping you from going to production with speed and scale. Bring those manual decisions also to your pipeline, right? And then the next thing, I love this line, right? If you see something, say something. This is there everywhere since 9/11, right? So for me, if pipeline sees something, it says something, right? So it found something critical, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, whatnot, right? Even for some things for software composition analysis. Again, not all the findings that the tool finds. You should be able to prioritize. What do I want to break the build for? What do I want to notify the development team so they can get this feedback as early as possible and fix it, right? So this will also help you build the trust with your development team. If not, they're like, okay, every time they see something, yeah, it's a false positive, I don't want to fix it, right? So the goal here is, if all of you, like here, 29% of you said we do DevSecOps, 26% of you said we do DevOps. What's the goal of DevOps? Fail fast, right? So that's what we are doing here. We are failing fast and letting you know that, hey, we found not some informational finding, but then we found critical or high vulnerabilities within their application. What do you want us to do, right? So if pipeline sees something, say something. Implement security gates. Yeah, I showed you one example there. A lot of companies have this, right? So either after each tool runs, you want to implement the gate and either break the build, or maybe you go all the way at the end, consolidate all the findings, and then you have a rating system, A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So whatever is your process, bring it into your pipeline, right? Because this is how you enforce all of the policies and processes that you have in your organization, and then able to govern that, right? So make sure that you implement your security gates into your pipeline. And then the next thing, as we do this, is also in a lot of places we also enforce when we find those vulnerabilities. One is by sending those Slack messages that you saw earlier, pipeline sees something, says something. The other one is here, right? So you let us know what are some of the vulnerabilities which are crucial for this application. Again, not for the OWASP top 10, right? Because that's not what is top 10 for your organization. You need to look at what is it that is critical for this application. That's why gathering that metrics is so important. So based off of that, you configure your pipeline to pause the pipeline. That's what we are doing here. You can either say okay to proceed, or you can say abort, and then you get that information, and then everything is logged, because in many cases your auditing team wants to see a lot of this, right? So you have logged a lot of that information, so you're able to get show that logs to your auditing team. The next thing is, how do I even reduce defect management overhead? When we initially talked, way like I think almost 6-7 years back, when we started automating defect tracking, we used to just automate once we triaged and then brought the application to a baseline for any activity, SAS, software composition analysis, DAST or IAS. The next goal was automate defect tracking, right? So all of the results, no matter what, right, whether it was critical, high, medium, low, informational, any new finding that the tool found used to go into defect tracking. And we used to have a lot of this battle with the development team saying, hey, this is a false positive, we don't want this, right? So that's where we wanted to make this tight feedback loop, and then also make sure that we only automate defect tracking for the vulnerabilities that you truly care about. Hey, this is an externally facing banking application. I cannot have cross-site scripting or SQL injection or any of those that you're seeing on the screen here, right? So, okay, then we are only going to automate defect tracking for that. Yeah, we know, but then the tool finds way too many low cross-site scripting. So what is the problem? We asked. They were like, okay, only if it is high and above should you automate defect tracking. Okay, that's fine. That's what we did, right? So the goal here is to make sure that you talk to your development team and then provide them feedback that they truly care about and in a timely manner, right? And then again, in spite of doing that, we also were able to pause the pipeline. Who should be notified? Is it the developer? Is it the development manager? Is it the SSG? Is it the information security? Whoever it is, right? As we are onboarding all of these applications into the pipeline, we have those basic questions that we need answers for, so that we can build those pipelines with the right kind of information that is needed, right? So the key things, what did we learn here, right? So we moved from a reactive assurance model where you do all these activities way at the end of your SDLC towards a proactive model, right? Because you're helping the developers, you're providing them all the tools and the technologies that they need. So how is it going to help you? It helps you achieve higher speed. it helps you achieve lower cost, right? Because you're striking a balance between the detection, what do I find, mitigation, I'm not going to fix all of them, right? I'm going to prioritize risk, look at the risk of each of the vulnerabilities that is found, and then I fix those. And then most importantly, you're trying to prevent, right? So this is going to help you lower costs. It is going to reduce the friction that most organizations have between the security team and the DevOps team. And you're building a lot of automation in your pipeline itself. So you're providing that continuous feedback that your developer needs. You're providing that continuous governance by including all of those checkpoints at various phases in the pipeline, right? So again, the goal of all of this, like you see all the way at the bottom, is to get you higher speed in spite of including all of the security activities in your pipeline. You know when to trigger those manual activities like we saw, not always, right? Because all of that requires way too much spend. So you're lowering the cost because now you know when do I trigger a manual code review, a manual penetration test, a manual threat model. You're reducing the friction because you brought all of that into your pipeline. You're providing continuous feedback for your developers, and this helps you achieve continuous governance, right? So these are key for your for building security into your DevOps pipeline, and which will help you not trip, right? So you'll be able to succeed and achieve the goal of speed and scale, right? With that said, let's see if we have any questions. Mitch, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. A few minutes left here. Let's see how many we can get to. What are your three ways to managing security in Agile DevOps, Agile/DevOps?
Oh, okay. I think one of the key things that I think I talked about, where the biggest challenge I have seen anytime we have built security in the DevOps processes is false positives. So if you follow at least certain things that I talked about here, you will be able to completely eliminate that, right? So you will be truly able to achieve that speed and scale. The next thing that I have seen is feedback for your developers, right? Continuous feedback. Again, DevOps is all about building that culture, the culture of feedback, the culture of learning. Lean and learning is key, and then make sure you do that. And then the third one is, I think I talked about it in so many slides, you need to understand what is the right tool to run at which phase in your SDLC, what is the right context that it needs, and then what is the depth that I need for each of those activities, right? So if you're able to do those three, you will be successful in building and managing security within your DevSecOps.
Okay, lightning round, if you can answer this in 1 minute. Are containers the key to DevSecOps?
Again, I think I touched this a little bit. We need to look at how are you using these containers, right? Are you using containers for your running application, or are you using containers for running your security testing, right? So if you're using containers for your security testing, then yes, it achieves you the scale that you need. But then if you're using your containers for your running application, then you need to follow a lot of best practices. And then that container scanning and all of the activities that you need to do needs to be part of your pipeline, right? So is it key? There are a lot of organizations who are truly DevSecOps and still not using containers, right? So I don't think it's necessary for achieving DevSecOps, right? So, yeah.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time here, and a little bit of housekeeping would take care of. By the way, we have an excellent webinar. Thank you, Mira, came in from Andres. So nice work. We have some questions that we didn't get to, we'll reach out to you offline to answer those. So just real briefly, in the few remaining seconds that we have, just want to thank everyone for your questions and also announce our winner of the gift card. Our 4 gift card winners, $25 each, are Anna Marie B, Emily R, Todd D, and Patrick R. You know who you are. We'll get a hold of you and let you know how to get those gift cards. So congratulations to our winners. Again, the webinar is recorded. The slides and the recording will be available via an email that everyone will receive. Links to download, get access to that. So be sure and check that out. And also check out DevOps.com. We've got some other great webinars on the topics of DevOps. We'd love to have you attend webinars like this from Synopsys in the future. Mira, it's been a pleasure. Mira Rao, Senior Director, Product Manager with Synopsys, to have you on today. Fantastic presentation. I agree with Andre. Wonderful job.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.
We definitely want to thank you for being part of our webinar today. We appreciate your time. Thanks for spending it with us. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.